Honorable Markham, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much for having me on it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you are the MP for Harare North. Wanted to find out what is your vision for this particular constituency?
Well, Harare North is a very complicated constituency. It is one of the few, if not the only one in Harare, where you've got a high density in Hatcliffe and you've got a low density in Borrowdale. The issue here is actually accentuated because Borrowdale's been a long established, wealthy constituency. But Hatcliffe has become, Hatcliffe, the original Hatcliffe, what they call Kuwan, is only a third of what was Hatcliffe. The rest is the informal settlement, which is being regularized, which is about to start, I hope. And that includes Hatcliffe Extension and Consortium. Now these areas have been developed by developers, cooperatives, whatever, so the infrastructure is virtually non-existent.
Yeah. So looking at particularly, maybe I would not borrow the issues around people building on wetlands. Is there a bill or something in Parliament or policy that is being put in place to?
Yeah, one of my regrets is all the parliamentary committees. I went on to the Public Accounts Committee because that's my passion, and having been a councillor for 5 years, I also went on to the local government because that will help my constituency, particularly when it comes to title in places like Hatcliffe. The Environmental Committee unfortunately clashes with one of those committees, so I couldn't sit on it, but the environment is a passion of mine, and as a councillor I pushed it very hard, both in council and I also, with others, formed what we call the Harare Wetlands Trust. And that has done wonderful work in a very short 3 or 4 years. It's got some wonderful people who've worked for next to nothing. We've had some very good donors and sponsors, which we're very grateful for. We've got some other big ideas coming on board very soon, and we hope that that will give it more of a larger outreach. But on the Harare Wetlands Trust, we actually won a court case last week on the Monavale wetland, which we're very pleased about. It's probably got to be one of the biggest ones on the environmental issues. But the one thing I'd like to say about the environment, all the laws are there. They're all there. Nothing's changed. The laws are there. There's some alignment to do to the Constitution. The laws are there. Where we have a problem is the laws are not being implemented. And not being implemented by City of Harare or any council. They are not being enforced by the government arm, which is through the Environmental Management Agency, and they're not being supported by the courts. And these things must come into action so that we can save the environment. We've got a major problem coming up in Harare, which no one can see yet. We've had a drought. There's been very little runoff. Chivero Dam or lake is still at least a meter from spilling. Now, if Chivero hasn't spilled this time of the year, unless we get the cyclone coming in, we've got a major problem when it comes to water. And it's not only the quantity of water, it's the quality of water. Because we estimate as a Harare Wetlands Trust that we've lost more than 40% of the wetlands. Now the wetlands is a sponge. Everyone thinks, oh, that's where the water comes from. It's no problem, it can come from our roof. But the sponge cleans the water, it goes underground and then comes out in the river further down and it's clean. But if you go to Chivero now and see the water going in there, it's not clean. So that's a major issue we got, but we've had some progress.
Yeah. Speaking on the alignment of laws to the Constitution, probably focusing on the committees that you sit in terms of, there's a debate around the public finance and that there are loans that have not been approved by Parliament that were being given out by the RBZ. What's the position? What's the progress in light of?
Well, if you follow the last couple of months on the Public Accounts Committee, which are all public, there has been some inroads and some questions, a lot of which have not been answered. But the bottom line is, until we get transparency, until we get accountability, nothing will change. And people can cry as much as they like, but you cannot change anything unless you can account for what you've done. And in the last parliamentary sitting, I don't know of any application for loans that came before Parliament. And that is shocking when you think you've run the whole country without the approval of Parliament for 5 years.
And
And also, if you get to things like the budget's a very simple thing. You do the budget. But then you need a warrant. A warrant is a piece of paper authorizing you to spend the money. No warrants were issued. So how can people spend the money? But they did. There were supplementary budgets which were announced. I don't think those ran through Parliament. And it's all right for us to say we've got a new dispensation, we're starting now and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. That's fine. But what about before? Because the people who did this before are still there. Whether they were somewhere in government, they're still there. Because the same civil servants are there. So if you've accepted those, you've accepted the past. And all I'm saying is, it's a major issue, but it can be solved. But we've got to start being accountable. If we're not accountable, we're not going to get any help.
Looking at local government in particular, there are many projects that are still pending, or there are many proposals that have been put into action, maybe by the councils themselves, local authorities. What has been the main thrust of the committee so far?
Our committee in local government has been at large finishing off the work of the previous parliament, what was in progress, and right now they're putting the work plan together for the next few years. Okay. It's a reasonably good committee. There is quite a lot to do. Don't forget the 92 councils throughout the country. The portfolio is rather large. There are 2 parastatals in it with Zupco and Udco. Okay. The new minister has been there. He's been quite serious about it, obviously, because he's been in there and he's obviously had quite a lot to do with the local government laws, and he's been quite proactive and positive. So I hope that continues into action. You know, it's easy for all of us, including myself, to sit and talk, but you've got to see the work on the ground. And that's what I'm pushing for. That's all I want to do in Harare North. And that's the one thing I did as a councillor in Borrowdale, is I tried to push just certain projects. And people are impatient, but they eventually happen.
Speaking about the projects that you're doing, we've seen Headcliff Polyclinic renovations. Probably you can tell us the projects that you have on the pipeline right now.
Well, there are quite a few. I'll tell you the ones that started. I don't like talking about the ones that are coming, because then there's an expectation, and you know, sometimes you let down. But the one which has gone reasonably well is the Headcliff Polyclinic. The biggest problem with that polyclinic is the roof was leaking like a sieve. I mean, we had women there. We used to joke that you had to take an umbrella if you wanted to give birth. Okay, so the roof, the city council must be clear that the roof was paid for by Harare City Council. We've been on this for about 3 years. Even before I became an MP, we were talking about this. Because we also lost 5 years. We've renovated the clinic in Borrowdale, which I must say the staff and the clinic are probably one of the best in Harare. Just on service. If they can't do it, they can't do it. But they're very good and very slick, and I'm very pleased with that clinic. So we're trying to do the same in Headcliff, except for it's a bigger clinic. So Headcliff now, the roof, I'm pleased to say, is finished by 2 days of work of cutting off the roof pieces and that. There was a huge bill paid for by the City of Harare, but the work was done by volunteers, paid for by some donors. So the roof was put on, and it was done very quickly. It stopped for a period because we had an issue with the existing solar panel, which has been removed and replaced. The good news is that we've had 3 solar geysers donated. Now, 2 of those will go on to maternity wing for the woman. So that means now that for the first time in, I want to say 20 years, but the first time in a long time, we'll have hot water at Headcliff Clinic for maternity. And then I've got a person that's one of my first donations from a certain sector of the community, who have donated the 3rd geyser, which is going in for the staff. You've also got to look after staff. You can't just have people looking after patients and going home and they can't wash and there's no hot water, because you know in winter it does get quite cold. So that's it. We've got a standby corporate here in town, a very good school friend of mine, who's going to do all the electrics for us, because that's the next step. Then we have the plumbing to do. There's a little bit of plumbing to do. We've got no donors on that side, but we are looking for them. And then the last thing is the ceilings and the floors. And then we top it off with painting, and then the clinic should be just about there running. One of the things in the pipeline is medical equipment, which I don't want to talk about because it's a far way down the line, but I'm hoping it'll happen. because there's no use having a building with nothing inside, and we are very short of medical equipment.
Okay. Yeah. Looking at maybe the work, the parliamentary work in terms of aligning the laws to the constitution, you've highlighted about implementation. How is the alignment process going in Parliament generally?
Look, there's a lot of talk about aligning the constitution, and it's a very slow-moving process. My own personal view, and I'm not a lawyer, as we say in when it comes to those things. The issue with the constitution is that it can't happen quick enough, because we've had 5 years, so whatever, since 2013, where very little happened. So we've got to align the constitutions for the laws so it works a little bit quicker and easier in the courts, because it is very slow at the moment. Okay, so that debate is handled by the lawyers.
Okay. Looking at the parliamentary sessions, people generally, Zimbabweans are saying there's a lot of shouting each other in Parliament. What's your take with that type of an environment as a legislator?
I find it a little bit time wasting. You know, we must get down to business. And if you look at the footage, I'm sure you'll see me there. But the issue is very simple. On our debates, we've got to move forward with the debates, and we've got to get down to the nitty-gritty and the meat. The argy-bargy, as I call it, is time wasting.
What would be maybe your message to the Harare North Constituency, Honourable?
Well, Harare North, we got major issues in areas. For example, even in Borodale, in the north-eastern corner of Borodale, towards the toll gate there, we got 3 informal settlements. Okay. I mean, just last week we had a diarrheal outbreak there. 7 people were taken to hospital, 15 were treated by St. Joseph's right there, about 100 have had Harare Health there, and results coming back have shown we've got 2 typhoid cases. But the water source has been tested and identified and shut down and treated. The toilets have all been treated, some of them have been condemned. In fact, most of them have been condemned. So that's a major issue we've got to watch and sort out now, because all the measures we're doing now are temporary to solve it. But we can't get away from the fact we've got informal settlements. So we've got to fix that. That's one of the major issues we're doing immediately. My issue for Harare North mainly attains to service delivery in Hatcliffe. There are things like roads. Hatcliffe needs at least immediately 17 kilometers of roads. There's not one tar road outside in Consortium or in Extension. That is where 68% of Hatcliffe live. And when it rains, you can't even walk there. And then the other big issue we've got there is ZESA. I mean, we've got residents who are putting up poles themselves, but there's no what I call backbone from ZESA to supply the residents. Now that backbone should be supplied. But then again, we get to a local government issue and ZESA. ZESA have got a rural development fund. But there's no urban development fund for informal settlements. And there are areas like Harare North, Harare South, Caledonia, all these areas, they must be looked after, and they're not budgeted for. And that's a major issue we've got to resolve. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying we must get together and fix it. Because that's the only way we're going to go forward. But we can't keep throwing money everywhere else except for these informal settlements. Because Hatcliffe, for example, for Toro has been waiting 20 years. Hatcliffe for electricity has been waiting 20 years. The clinic that we are fixing right now is only for a population of 26,000. There's 96,000 people living in Hatcliffe. That is a huge city. Or town. And so those people are living there, and we're not doing the job. And we have to. And we can't do it ourselves. Even the government can't do it. We've got to get donors, and we've got to get a favorable, economic, accountable, transparent economy so that we can get those people to come help us. And we can do anything from boot to private partnerships, but let's fix it. And that's all I want to do is fix it. Now, I'll give you a great example on the roads. The main road, Alps Road, going out there. Alps Road residents have been patching that road for more than 3 years. And right now, as of last week, we couldn't even get tar. From the city, from roads, for whatever. And I believe it's on the list, but we've got to move it. We've got to do it. At least that will help people getting to and from work. But these are major issues beyond the costing of local government and national government. We've got to get a joint thing, including donors involved.
Thank you so much, Honourable.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.